something that I was more involved with recently that I think is kind of a cool way of doing things is the way that we approach the OpenSea, like adding OpenSea integration, where we went from only supporting auctions, like ascending price ETH auctions, to now being able to buy any item on OpenSea.
Yeah, I don't know if the market has like priced this into PartyBid yet. Like, I have people been using that like crazy, or because to me this is such a cool feature. I didn't think it was possible.
People have been using it, but what we've noticed, which we're actually like, I've spent a lot of my day working on this. It's coming very soon, maybe by the time this podcast is released. The problem is that the OpenSea market moves quickly, and people aren't always fast to get all the ETH together in a party. So basically,
Right.
let's say, oh, I see solvency, number 20 is for sale. I'm going to start a party. It takes a few days to get the ETH together, but by the time that the ETH is together, solvency number 20 has sold. And the smart contract was designed to only allow that party to purchase that specific token ID, right? So you need to wait for the party to expire, and then you claim your ETH, and you're just kind of sad, right? So that's the major problem that we had. We've had a lot of successful OpenSea purchases through PartyBid, and that's great. But we've also seen ETH come together over time just to see the item get delisted or sold. But we're solving that in this next release, where we now have collection-based parties that are like, you're still targeting a specific collection. Let's say, oh, we want to target the solvency collection, but then the party creator specifies like a list of what deciders, at least internally in the Solidity, which are people who are allowed to pick the specific item. So that means like, oh, we're going to raise money to buy a solvency piece, but I'm going to defer to Steve and Nicholas to be the ones to actually decide which solvency piece is it that we actually buy.
So picking token ID from contract, same contract address.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. Just removing the token ID and like a few other changes, right? So then that allows you to not have this problem where the item gets delisted or sold and like you just have to claim your fees and kind of move on to the next thing. So
is the party at all times targeting a single token and then they can just change what token it's pointing at?
No, it's like the token ID is essentially empty. And then when the purchase occurs from the decider, they send in the token ID and stores that with the one that is purchased.
Oh, interesting. Okay. You talking about this made me think it would be interesting to be able to point it at NFTX also. Like, let's just buy a floor or whatever.
Well, so this kind of goes into a little bit about how the Solidity works, which I think is pretty cool. So when we were trying to develop, like, how can we get this contract to buy stuff from OpenSea, we're like, I don't know if you looked at the Wyvern like order format, but like it's really flexible. It's actually very cool and very impressive, but it's just really hard to reason about because
there's like 32 fields or something.
Oh my God, dude, it's insane. And like they all contain encoded call data. Like you can't just look at the order and be like, oh yeah, this is an order punk for 25 ETH. It's like you can't decipher it easily as a human, and there's a million fields. It's hard to deal with. So when we first started doing this, we were like, okay, we have specific market wrappers that know how to deal with Zora auctions and foundation auctions. Like we just need to go down and figure out how these Wyvern orders work and like write a specific Wyvern integration for this like new code that we were writing that internally is called PartyBid, like in the contracts. And then I actually went down that route, and it was just so hard to deal with these like Wyvern orders. I was getting pretty frustrated. And we had a call where we're jamming and like just trying to figure out what's the right way to go about this. Do we just need to keep grinding on this bespoke Wyvern integration? But then we kind of came up with this approach where we're like, there is an OpenSea SDK that generates these for you. It makes it very simple. Like you just call a JavaScript function with like, parameters that make sense, and then it constructs the transaction for you. So we were like, why don't we just grab the transaction data that's generated from the OpenSea SDK and then pass that as like raw call data into the contract, and then just kind of ensure that the NFT that we expect to be bought is like received like custody by the contract after that call data is executed. So when you raise enough funds and then buy something from OpenSea, actually what happens underneath the hood is that you send in a transaction with like a function calls like buy, and then you specify like a target contract, which is like the Wyvern smart contracts and target call data. And then it sends, and also I think the value of ETH that the item costs, it kind of delegates to call that contract with that arbitrary call data with that amount of ETH. And then it just ensures that the NFT that you expect to buy is now custodied by the smart contract. So then that allows us to, hey, we want to write a Rarible integration. We want to write a LooksRare integration or whatever. All we need to know is how to generate that call data. And then the Solidity contract just checks that NFT was received. And we also have like an allow list functionality where like we only allow, right now it's only the Wyvern smart contract is like the only like target address that is kind of allowed to be forwarded to. But like that's controlled by governance, and like we could add things there as well.
So you're spinning up the transaction, you're constructing the transaction using the SDK on the front end, but then the contract is going to verify that it's received the right token that it was anticipating?
Exactly. Yeah. So like we had to fork the OpenSea SDK to like instead like the OpenSea SDK by default would just kind of like start executing the transaction. So I forked it to just return me the call data that it generated. And then I just passed that call data to our smart contract and with like Wyvern as the target contract. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So like a little bit of a sacrifice in terms of you need the PartyBid front end in order to be able to generate the OpenSea dependency, or I guess the forked version.
You don't necessarily need to. Hypothetically, you could do it without it. It's just extremely convenient to do it through the
Okay.
interface.
Got it.